Welcome everybody to the very first episode of the Triple B Podcast, also known as Barbell Benders Podcast. I'm here with the Altman Biggs. Altman, how you doing today?
I'm making it, man. Trying to not to burn up in this heat.
Man, this southern heat. For anybody that hadn't been down here, you need to come try it for a summer and just let us know how it is, because it's not just the heat; it's the heat and the humidity.
Exactly. It's like 90% humidity out here.
Man, it's ridiculous. Sweating all the time. How's your training been going, man?
Dude, it's actually been going pretty well. I've gotten into where I'm doing like 2 days now.
2 days?
Yeah, man. I do like my heavy stuff in the morning, then light stuff in the evening. Might be put a little bit of cardio in there. Got an Apple Watch, and that's been helping out a lot.
What kind of split do you do?
I do push-pull legs right now.
Okay, I like it.
So I'm just a hard gainer. I need a little bit more volume than most people. That's what I've realized. I'm losing weight too, so it helps help me cut calories.
Yeah, I gotcha. And the heat'll for sure help that too.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's go ahead and get in. Since our first episode, for some people might have heard us on the
Kilo Talk
podcast. We've been on there about a week ago to introduce the Triple B Podcast. But Altman, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody what the podcast is going to be focused on?
Yeah, well, we're going to be focused on just trying to make college and high school age guys a lot better. Really help them. We'll share our experiences and what we've gone through in the powerlifting world. I've only been in it for about 3 years now. I know you've been in it since high school, and teach them, because we wanted to be taught. We've learned through our experiences. We've learned through mentors, so to say, and we want to mentor a lot more people and teach them how to be the best lifters they can be.
Right. Continue to learn ourselves and then pass on that knowledge to other people. Focus on powerlifting with also talking about strength training in general for how to apply it to any sport.
Yeah.
So what are we going to be talking about this episode?
So this episode, we're going to talk about just how to start something, because we're starting a podcast. We're starting something new, and a lot of people don't really start. When they want to start something new, they get bogged down with, am I going to do it right? Am I going to do it well? How should I do it? And it was pretty funny because we messaged a bunch of people asking how to start the podcast. And,
right.
That's how we got involved with Kilo Talk Network. But I messaged Dan Efforting, and I asked him, any suggestions on starting the podcast? And it was pretty funny. He said, just do it.
Just do it.
Have fun with it.
Just
talk about stuff you want to do. Yeah, exactly. It was hilarious. I was like, this is a man right here. This is exactly what we're going to do. Yeah. We're just going to do it.
I think for starting anything, you kind of need a little bit of base information, but especially in powerlifting with the internet, there's just so much information out there, and I think people can get bogged down with what to listen to, what not to listen to, what to try in the gym for the first time. There's just so much out there.
Yeah, it's interesting starting something new, like especially with strength training. I know Dave Tate and a lot of the older guys, they think that a newbie should just go in the gym and figure stuff out, which I think is good for the most part. But if you want to be an athlete, you need to have a coach. You need to have someone that knows a little bit more what they're doing, and it's a little bit better if you have a coach sometimes, because when you have a coach, they can really teach you everything that they know, and it kind of gives you a leg up in the competition.
Yeah, it gives you that head start of information, that useful information that you can apply in the gym versus just whatever you read off the internet.
Exactly.
So whether it be like an official coach or just a friend that's been working out for a long time, they can give you pointers. But I think it's good to have someone there to help you and guide you along in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with all these new guys, and then all these guys online selling intensity, when in the beginning you just need to focus on push-ups, pull-ups. Can you even do a bodyweight squat right?
The basics.
Exactly, the basics. So how did you start with the basics?
So I started lifting in middle school and 7th grade for football, and they took us through how to do all the lifts properly so we didn't hurt ourselves. But yeah, for squat, I definitely start with a bodyweight squat. Make sure you have the mobility and the stability. So you can get down, because a lot of people can't even get down in a full squat.
Exactly.
We did this thing in football called a caveman, where it's just a very deep squat, flat feet, even pressure on the whole foot. And there were some guys that couldn't do it. And since I did it so much throughout school, I can go down at any time in the day and just hit a deep squat, which I think everybody should be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a sign of healthy knees, healthy hips, ankles, and everything.
That's what Squat University, that's what he talks about a lot too. I will say, I do think people need to be able to squat, but I think you have to incorporate a little bit of progressions with that too.
Right.
I don't think you could someone who's never really done anything in their life, I don't think you can go and say, hey, you're going to do a deep squat with proper form, exact form like we want you to. I think there has to be a little bit of progression.
Very rare. Yeah. Is somebody ever going to be able to just drop into a deep squat with good form?
Exactly.
So they're probably going to start somewhere around, a quarter squat, maybe almost a parallel. Exactly. But the main thing is, stay safe and not get hurt.
That's very, very true. Point exact. I've watched a little bit of Chris Duffin and his squat videos and deadlift videos, and he preaches mobility and having being able to actually brace first, and then with his clients, he doesn't make them squat all the way down to ass to grass. He does more of a progression with them too, before the butt wing.
Right.
That's where he stops.
Yeah.
And it's just a slow progression.
Yeah. So the number one thing you'd say for getting started in strength training, powerlifting period is just learning the basics.
Exactly.
All right. What would you say number two would be?
Basics and technique.
Technique. I think that's extremely important, and that goes kind of back to the internet. There's a lot of stuff about technique on there, and sometimes you might just have to read a lot of different stuff, take everybody's opinion, and go in the gym and apply different things one at a time and see what works for you. Because some stuff, as far as technique goes, there's a general guideline to a healthy squat, but not everybody squats the same.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people will look at someone's squat, no matter their experience level, and say, oh, you're doing this wrong, you should do that better. Well, maybe they're just anatomically different.
Everybody's anatomically. No one's exactly the same.
Exactly.
You're not this perfect textbook.
Everybody's going to squat different, everybody's going to bench different. Still the same movement, so everybody's just accomplished in a different way.
Another thing I would say, too, would be, this might be the third point, would be GP people, general physical preparedness, being able to actually handle volume for your person or client. Because a lot of these people, they don't know how to. Well, when you give them volume, they're going to get better, of course, but you have to know where to start. With beginners, you can start with a little bit higher volume because they're just so new, they recover a lot faster. But I really like Jim Wendler's stuff. He does more of 5 sets of 8 to 15.
Yeah.
His 5-3-1 stuff. He uses that for his football players, and it works extremely well. They get up to 5 sets of 15 with a 100+ pound goblet squat.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you're a very impressive person.
Yeah, I'd say that'll get you primed pretty well for some good strength training.
Absolutely.
And with high volume, you need to keep intensity low.
Exactly.
Because you can try to squat 5 sets of 8 to 15 goblet squats at 80-85%, but you're not going to last very long in training doing that.
Exactly. I like a lot of this stuff too. Start light. Don't start too heavy. That's what a lot of people need to hear. Start light, especially for these young guys. They don't know how to. They're thinking about numbers, but they're not thinking about the long term.
Right.
And we get caught up in that sometimes, just that ego lifting.
Yeah.
We want to hit those numbers right then and there.
That's what I live for.
Exactly. And you got to think 1 or 2 weeks ahead. How is this going to hurt my training for the future, or how's it going to hurt my program for the future?
Yeah.
Because if I have a meet coming up and I go balls to the wall, going 10+ RPE, how is that going to hurt in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Or when the meet actually comes, am I going to compete too early, too late?
And that's another reason to have somebody there that knows what they're doing, like a coach, to help you manage as much volume and intensity, and then fatigue. Because fatigue will build up pretty quick. Like in football, we were going during the season, like 5 days a week workouts, 1.5 to 2 hours, going on Sunday and lift 2, and we were accumulating a lot of fatigue. We were getting beat up quick, but football coaches don't really care about that.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of problem comes in, because I think every school should have a proper strength coach, or someone that's a little bit more knowledgeable, because it's not just going, hey, we're going to do all these drills, we're going to run up the stairs 10, 15, 20 times.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more to that, and I think it comes down to there are coaches that are more mentally focused, more let's get these guys mentally prepared, and then there are guys who are like, all right, let's do science. What does science have to say for us?
Yeah.
I think it's about finding that good little balance in there.
Because there are for sure coaches. I know I had a couple, if you're listening, which you're probably not, I'm sorry, guys that couldn't walk up a flight of stairs but are going to tell you to do 3 hours of conditioning.
Exactly. Especially some of these big guys that haven't really done much. They haven't done much at all, and you say, all right, we're going to run, we're going to sprint a couple, about 10 100s. What? he can't do that.
Yeah, and then we're going to lift.
Exactly. There's no way they can do that. They won't be able to walk for the next week.
Yeah, that's not how the body works.
Exactly. You have to add a little bit at a time. I'm curious to see, though, with this football season, how it's going to end up. Everyone's going to be on kind of the same playing field. I mean, they are starting a little bit later, but it'll be interesting to see the conditioning.
But I mean, I think, just for speaking for Mississippi State, I think they've been training pretty hard too.
Yeah.
They don't want to come in lacking at all.
Oh no.
Which I wouldn't want to.
It'll be interesting to see, especially. I'm just curious to see how all the teams are, especially how the new team is with the new strength coaches and new coaches.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a good season for Mississippi State football team coming up. But anyway, we got a little tangent.
Yeah, that's a little squirrel there.
A little tangent right there. So the GPP, getting physically prepared. What would you recommend someone do to become physically prepared to start strength training?
Like I said before, really just body weight stuff. So push-ups. If they can't do a regular push-up, get them on a wall. Get them doing a wall push-up. Body weight squat. If they can't do a body weight squat right, then put them on a box.
Yeah.
Box squat. It's a great way to learn. And then inverted rows if they can't do pull-ups, which some people can, some people can't. If they can do pull-ups, start extremely light, maybe 5 sets of 1.
Yeah.
And then progress it from there.
And there is no shame in wherever you start.
Absolutely not.
Everyone's got to start somewhere.
Exactly. And everybody starts at the same spot, basically.
Right.
0. And you can only get better from there.
Exactly. Yeah, those inverted rows, our coach would make the linemen do those because we couldn't bust out more than like 3 or 4 pull-ups.
I hope you can get 3 or 4 more pull-ups now.
Oh, yeah. I'm like 6 or 7.
6 or 7? Okay.
I'm still
a little bit better.
Still a pretty big guy.
But yeah, GPP, just working on the body weight movements and progress that to like Jim Wendler, like 5 sets of 15.
Yeah.
Once they can do that, awesome. Or you can do the Matt Winning 4 sets of 25. He does 3 exercises, 4 sets of 25. I think that's a pretty good goal for somebody to work up to. I mean, more experienced lifters, that's their warm-up. But when you're a newbie, that's your workout.
Yeah.
You're not used to that. You can't handle that yet.
You have to build up the
volume,
yeah,
intensity.
you have to build up the volume to be able to hit it. And so once somebody is able to do that, pretty easily, where would they go next? As far as like dropping reps, upping the weight a little bit?
Absolutely. I kind of have this benchmark, like 5 sets of 10. Once you get that, because most people can't get that first off. They're going to be sore for the next week. They can't really handle it. So 5 sets of 10 is kind of like my mark right there for 3 exercises. And then we'll start adding weight. We might incorporate a bench press, a little more of a strength movement, and then have 2 or 3 accessories. But yeah, I think after the body weight stuff, I personally like dumbbells because it really teaches stability.
Yeah, I like dumbbells too.
That's where I started. I think it has helped me out a lot. If you can get a newbie to work with dumbbells, you can get them to bench press a lot better.
Yeah.
Because if they do a dumbbell, they're going to be all over the place, and it's just really working on that motor pattern.
Right. But with that being said, someone shouldn't rely only on dumbbells.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an accessory movement at first, but when you're a beginner, anything's going to work.
Yeah.
You can do a curl, and you're probably going to get a stronger bench press.
Yeah. Anything's going to make you a better strength lifter. So once we go through and they've dropped the weight a little bit, dropped the volume a little bit, added some weight, they should still be focused on that technique. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people forget is as long as you're focused on strength training and powerlifting, you should always be worried about technique. Exactly. There's always something to fix.
Yes.
Always something to get better at, some body part to strengthen, some part of the movement. What have you found recently in your squat, bench, and deadlift that you kind of were neglecting for a little while, but then realized, hey, this is something I need to work on to get better at this movement?
For me, it was bracing. I'm not the best lifter in the world, so in order for me to get stronger, I had to learn to brace.
Yeah.
And I'm not the best bracer yet either. I've been working on it for about a year, and I've been trying to get that butt wink out, and a lot of that comes down to bracing. Mm-hmm. Really, how hard can you squeeze your core? Really, how much air can you breathe in? Yeah. Really literally breaking that belt. When I take a breath, I want to hear the belt expand. I want to hear that kind of leather just kind of tearing. That's a good sound to me. I'm like, okay, I'm bracing hard enough. And you feel better in the squat too. You feel like it's just one fluid motion instead of being like, hips might rise first and then you're back. You do basically good morning.
Yeah, I feel like the bracing is kind of overlooked, and it may be seen as like a minuscule thing. Mm-hmm. And really all 3 lifts, but kind of mainly the squat, because you have to have that neutral spine, trunk tightness. But it's more than just taking a breath in and holding it.
Exactly.
You gotta learn where to put it, where to put the pressure, how to hold it for the duration of like a 1 rep max if that's what you're going for. I like what you said. That's one thing I started focusing on a lot more, was that just all 360 core tightness.
Exactly.
Like you said, trying to break that belt.
Squeeze as hard as you can. What about you though? What would you say would be one of your?
So on the squat, I've been kind of playing with things here and there. Definitely the core, and also keeping my chest up. I had a problem when I would get up to like 95 to 100%. My ass would shoot up first, and then my chest would come up. That's obviously not what you want. You want it to be one fluid motion. So I started working more front squat, goblet squats, what else? And just trying to work on it and mentally putting it at the forefront when I'm squatting. So making that, because usually I'll try to take like 1 or 2 cues into a session and focus really on those for probably like a training period. And that's just the number one thing I'm trying to focus on during that lift. Bench, I'd say, since I'm an equipped lifter, I've been trying to focus on tries a lot. That's a big part of benching, whether you're equipped or not, really. And just keeping those elbows tucked and staying tight. And that brings me to another thing. In your opinion, it's kind of a little tangent. In your opinion, what's the most underrated muscle group in all of powerlifting?
Most underrated.
Underrated and underappreciated.
Underrated and underappreciated. The rear delt, man. The rear delt and just the back in general, I think. I mean, a lot of powerlifters do need to focus on their back, but I think you need to do a majority of your training to your back and just your posterior chain in general.
Now that I think about it, the rear delt is pretty underrated.
That's what holds the bar in place.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing a low bar. And that's what keeps your shoulders healthy too. If you want to have longevity in your shoulders, you need a bigger, stronger rear delt.
Right.
I find when I bench press a lot, especially if I have a higher volume bench press and it's just a push day, I find that my shoulder gets kind of pushed into the groove of just being internally rotated.
Right.
And when I do like a back exercise, that kind of brings that external rotation back, so my shoulders getting back in place, and it feels much, much better.
Yeah.
I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, the muscle group that I was thinking of, and kind of hoping you would say would be lats. Everybody wants those big wings.
Absolutely.
And once I started focusing on that, because they're really, bench, keeping those lats and the rear delts tight to give you a good platform when you're benching. Squat, whether you squat high bar, low bar, everything back there has got to be as tight as you can get
Exactly.
Deadlift, tight trunk, tight lats. That's the key.
One thing too, I got this from Josh Bryant from Joe House Strong. He does a lot of seal rows.
Yeah.
And that's just with you on the bench and then the dumbbell or barbell beneath you.
It's like an incline bench when you're laying down on it.
A chest supported row, basically.
Right.
I find those to be extremely helpful, man, especially for the upper trap, like mid and upper trap, getting that kind of like diamond in there, and building that thickness of the upper back.
So where do you like to go, or do you vary it, the incline, the degree of it?
I usually do more of a kind of where I would do an incline dumbbell bench.
So around 45.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty neutral position to work the rear delts.
If you want to progress it, you can go up a little higher, a little lower. You can change it up every 3 or 6 weeks, depending on what you like.
So what would make it more difficult, higher or lower?
Definitely higher.
Definitely higher.
Yeah, definitely higher.
Okay.
Because it puts you at a much greater disadvantage. Because if you're doing a little bit flatter, then you can actually perform a row.
It's more like shoulder, front delt, side delt. The higher you get, you're pulling more into you, more.
Exactly. It's more like a trap movement to that
right.
way.
Yeah.
Maybe more like a shrug. So it might get easier for some people, but I'd say it would get harder, especially when you move up. It's a very hard exercise to do at first, especially with dumbbells.
Right.
I mean, you have guys, especially some of the best, that are only using like 100-pound dumbbells, and that might sound a lot, but they're the best of the best, and they're only using 100-pound dumbbells.
Only 100-pound dumbbells.
Yeah, it makes you think, well, where do I lie in this situation?
Yeah. How do you think rows in general are underrated?
Oh, dude, absolutely.
There's all different kinds of rows, man.
Oh, absolutely. Just find 2 or 3 and stick with them.
Yeah.
That's another good thing for beginners.
Right.
Find 2 or 3 exercises and stick with them. That's all you need.
Don't
focus on everything.
Don't jump exercises. Don't jump programs. If you're gonna find something, and you're staying healthy with it and making progress, stick with that.
Exactly.
Until it stops working.
You don't need to do all these different cable flies or just different dumbbell benches. Find a flat dumbbell bench. Maybe do an incline bench. Do that, and then stick with that for 6-12 weeks and watch your progress go up.
Right.
That's the best way to get better at something. Then switch it up after that.
Yeah. So that beginner phase, kind of, there's a lot of things that'll work in there.
Yeah.
When would you say you kind of start getting out of the beginner phase?
Really,
kind of when you start to plateau, maybe, or when you start seeing, because I would define it as like, I don't know, I guess you could look at it based off of like relative strength to like other lifters, but you kind of do it based on like experience, like years lifting. And I would say once you get probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years, you're kind of out of that beginner phase. You've learned a decent bit. What do you think?
I think it comes strength to body weight ratio, of course. And I think once you get 2.5 times your body weight, you're on squat, you're closer to an intermediate, of course. And you can get 2.5 to 3 times your body weight on what's it called? On deadlift, you're probably more intermediate. But there are some guidelines in the Natural Strength, or the Essential Strength Conditioning book by the NSCA, and some of this might be for them a beginners a couple months, which I don't think that's true. And on Juggernaut, it's more beginners like less than 4 years of experience. So I think that can be a lot different for different people.
Yeah, I think it varies because you got to look at how often they train.
Yeah, and if they've ever trained.
Right.
If there's someone that's been doing it for 3 or 4 years, I would probably consider them an intermediate. Someone that's been doing it a little bit longer. And it depends on how hard you've been training too. Because when I first got here, I didn't really know what training was. I didn't know what it meant to train, and then I got learning, figuring stuff out with powerlifting. I just kind of forced around in high school. I didn't really train.
Yeah, you saying that reminds me of Elite FTS's Dave Tate's Train Your Ass Off with Dave Tate.
Yes.
You seen those?
Dude, those are hilarious, man.
Man, in the intro he says that the point of this is to teach people how to train submaximally at high intensity so they know what high intensity looks like.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times for me, I know it's kind of hard to get really intense, especially on like just the minute accessories. It's hard to get like hyped up and be
attentive.
Attentive in those without having like someone with you to push you.
Exactly.
So that's
another reason I like Jim Whitler stuff. He just keeps it like 2 or 3 exercises and that's it, 5 sets. But I agree. That's why I kind of started doing the 2-a-days.
Yeah.
So I could focus on 2 or 3 lifts at one time, really go in there, destroy those, and then come back and do it again.
Yeah.
In a couple of hours.
And a lot of people throw around like a certain time limit for working out, time limit, a minimum. I don't think you should put any kind of time strain on it. Now, if you're rushed for time and you got something to do later, set your timer for 30 minutes, go in, do what you need to do, and just hit it hard, get out of there. What do you think kind of the optimal training time is, in your opinion?
I think it depends on what you're training and how you're training. If you're training for strength, you're obviously going to need, and if you're training at very high intensity, you're going to need longer rest periods.
Right.
But you can't have as many exercises because your intensity is so high. So if you're training like 80% plus, I would suggest about maybe 5 minutes of rest between a set of 5 or 5 to 8. So
there's a lot of variables in there deciding,
Yeah, and it depends on what kind of training you like. If you're someone that came from like a cross country runner, you can have a lot more volume in a lot less amount of time because you're used to that.
Right.
Now, if you get someone that's been a sprint athlete their entire life, if I try to do density training with them like that and give them 10 different exercises, 10 sets of 10 on all of them, they won't be able to do that. And I probably wouldn't give that to anybody, but there's a line you draw. It also depends on like the muscle fiber type, fast, slow twitch. But I don't think you can put a time on it, right?
So what you're saying, what I'm getting is it really boils down to volume, intensity, and training experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Those 3 things need to be taken into account.
And age too, like
right.
How much can you concentrate on those exercises?
Right.
What's your attention span?
Yeah. Some people go to the gym, they put in their work, and they just get kind of bored after a little while.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why you need a training partner.
That's very true. It helps you stay competitive. I do find that a lot, especially it's just fun, man.
Yeah.
Just go in there and have fun with your buddies sometimes.
No matter whether they're a decent bit stronger than you or you're stronger than them, you can still push each other. That
Exactly.
person is not as strong. They have something to work toward. The person is stronger. They got to keep up.
Yeah.
You don't want that person that's supposedly not as strong as you putting up more weight.
Exactly.
It's kind of embarrassing.
Exactly. You can't let them win.
Yeah. So we've been through. Let's see. Technique, body weight, GPP. And then increasing throughout volume and intensity. Anything else you want to add to that starting training?
I also think for just beginning training in general, I think time is very underestimated. Now, when I think of time, I think of CrossFit. They do stuff for time, like every minute on the minute. They might do AMRAPs for a certain amount of minutes. I think. Like if you're doing a workout and it takes you 20 minutes, 30 minutes, well, try to complete it faster next time. Try to do it 28 minutes, 29 minutes.
Because that'll raise the intensity.
Exactly, and that's a form of progressive overload. I think that's commonly overlooked. Josh Bryan, Joe Strong talks about this. He has exercises called the Warriors Valley, push-ups, pull-ups. Basically, you do 20 push-ups and walk over somewhere else, do 1 push-up. Then do 19 push-ups, then 2 push-ups. And then it's just a continuation process until you get the opposite. So 20 on one side, 1 on the other, and see how fast you can get that done. If you get it done in a certain amount of time, then yes, you can progress it. So every week, the volume's the same, but you're doing it faster.
Yeah.
So you're getting your same volume, but increasing the intensity, increasing the decreasing the amount of time, which is greater density.
Yeah. That saying that for time made me think of this summer. Kind of early summer during quarantine, I saw this thing called the Murph Challenge. You ever heard of that?
I have. Explain that to me.
So, if I remember correctly, and if I get this wrong, I'm sorry. I'm not a cardio, long workout type of guy. But it was like a mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then another mile.
Wow.
I'm a pretty big fella. I wasn't going balls to the wall the whole time. It was quarantine. I just needed something to do. Gyms were closed. I think I did it in like a little over 3 hours.
Wow.
It was awful.
I bet. It
Absolutely
sounds
awful. 300 squats.
You only do 1.
yeah. I had to do sets of like 15 and then sit back down and that mile run after.
Oh, dude. Cramps.
If you want to hate yourself and get cramps, and just go ahead and try that.
That's hilarious, dude. I've seen people do like weight vests and stuff too.
You're supposed to do a weight vest. I was not about to throw on a weight vest though. I was lucky to finish that at all.
Golly, man, that just sounds awful. That sounds like a heart attack waiting to happen for me.
Right. Which brings me to another point. Probably cap this list off for starting training. The last thing that I would put into consideration when you start out training is recovery.
Oh, dude, yeah.
If I were to ask you 3 basic things to think about and do for recovery, what would they be?
Sleep, eat, and don't just sit on your ass all day.
There we go.
The body's made for motion. The body's made for range of motion. Motion is potion. If you're
Did you say that again?
Motion is potion.
There we go. We need to put that on a t-shirt. Motion is potion.
There we go. But yeah, man, I think sleep in general, I think maybe I'd say 7 to 10 hours of sleep a night. I probably get about 9 hours of sleep a night. It's good to sleep. And people talk about it all the time. Oh, I love to sleep. Well, do you? Because you look like shit.
Do 30-minute naps count?
Yeah, actually they do, man. That actually is better for you than like an hour or 2 hour nap.
Yeah.
But yes, sleep, eat. A lot of guys are like, I eat a lot. No, you don't.
Yeah.
It's when eating can be very hard sometimes, especially if you're a smaller dude. You have to eat a lot more than you, and you probably don't eat as much as you think. If you write it down on paper, you're like, wow, this is what my dog eats in a day. And then, of course, motion is potion.
Yeah.
That's more of like slow intensity, like 75% below.
Yeah.
That's where I'd say the winning warm-up comes in, forces 25, really light, just getting the body through, just getting blood flow in there. And
yeah.
Just go for a walk.
It's weird how that works. Jumping back right before quarantine, I got hurt deadlifting, and I hurt my back for the 3rd time, and then it kind of went into my hip, Obviously, gyms were closed. I couldn't go work out. But I noticed that the more I did, like, walking around, doing some work around the house, outside the house, whatever it was, the more I did, the better it got.
Mm-hmm.
If I spent a day inside being lazy, it got worse.
Yes.
Like, it was so noticeable, the amount when I would have a day of high movement, it would feel pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It would get better. So that motion is potion. Remember that, folks.
And so what are some things you would do for kind of like your off day or recovery day?
I would make sure you get enough sleep, obviously. I would just go ahead. I usually like to finish off the week on like a leg day, so I can start the next week on like a upper body day. Go ahead and do some stretching. Man, there's never a bad time to stretch. And I feel kind of hypocritical saying that because I'm not very good at stretching myself. I don't do it a lot, which I should. That's one of the things I need to start doing more this year is stretching. But stretching is also underrated, man. Just set you like a 10-minute timer and just start stretching. Quads, hammies, glutes. Stretch those shoulders out. And shoulder health is so important.
Range of motion in their shoulders. That's what keeps you healthy.
Absolutely.
You see all these old guys, they're like, I can't put my shoulder up above my head anymore. Well, because you've never taken it through that range of motion anymore. That's why it doesn't want to go anywhere.
I do this little warm up for every arm day I do. I grab that PVC pipe and I hold it down with kind of like a wider grip, and I keep my arms straight, lock the shoulder blades back, and bring it all the way up around my head. And you should be able to get it behind you without bending your arms.
Yep.
If you can't, widen your grip and then try that. And that'll keep your shoulders healthy, keep that mobility up, and just general, a good warm up for especially bench.
Oh, dude, absolutely.
Something like shoulder press.
I 100% agree. I see those shoulders, not shoulder savers, but what's it called? There's I kind of think it has like a weight on the end of it, and it's a very long pole, and you kind of go behind your head, and you take your shoulders through flexion and
swing
extension.
in a circle.
Yeah, it takes your shoulders through flexion, extension, their range of motion, and that's what I think that's what keeps you healthy in the long run, especially for your shoulders. And like I said, for your delts, make sure your rotator cuff's on and everything. But you're definitely taking your body through range of motion. I think with stretching, people's hamstrings get really tight.
Absolutely.
That's one of the probably least stretched areas on most people, especially from sitting down all day.
Should be the most stretched.
Exactly. People don't realize that we're sitting down all day. Most of us. So everything's just getting tight. We have our legs flexed.
Right.
And we're kind of in this like
hunched over.
Exactly.
The screen lean.
Yeah, and you just need to have a time where you can actually like let loose, open yourself up, get that chest open, and really just feel better.
Stretching gets the blood flowing.
It does. Motion is potion.
Exactly. There you go. Whew. So with all that being said, you can find our podcast, our Instagram podcast at triple.b.podcast. Altman, where can folks find you?
You can find me at Biggs College Strength on Instagram, BIGGS College Strength.
All
one word.
You can find me at Seth.Todd76. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We're planning on doing these weekly, based around powerlifting and strength training in general. And we'll see you guys next week.
All right, guys, take it easy. Have fun.